Welcome to Life by Design for Chiropractors, episode 33.
Welcome to Life by Design, the podcast for chiropractors. Here's your host, Dr. Jamie Richards.
Welcome to Life by Design for Chiropractors. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Richards. Previously, we talked with Dr. Mike Gibson, and we discussed how to do to-do lists right. And that episode gained a lot of traffic, a lot of questions, a lot of positive feedback. And one of the most common questions we received regarded apps. What is it that we use for our phones, our desktop? What do we use to maximize productivity, health, finances, all these different areas? So we thought, what a great show. We'll just compile everything that we use and we'll talk about as many as we can on one show. So that's what we did today. Enjoy today's episode of Life by Design for Chiropractors. Mike, welcome to Life by Design for Chiropractors.
Thanks, Jamie. Great to be here.
Mike, last time we did an episode, we covered the use of an app called Things and talked about how to really do to-do lists and do them well. I would say it was one of the episodes that we've had probably the most positive feedback on.
I would agree. I can't remember having so many docs reach out personally to me to let me know that it was obviously very timely, but also just they really enjoyed it. And that was, I think we hit the nail on the head in the sense that chiropractors are really, really good at the vision part, but lack that piece to put that vision into, bite-sized action steps that they can actually move forward on. So apparently, that was really what people needed.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. If you want to think about, if your marketing is good, that's a good way to know is get some great feedback from people who are in your market. So thanks to everybody who sent those personal messages to both Mike and I about the Things app and how to use it and how that really benefited you. So we thought what we would do today is talk about some other tools and some other apps that we use, because as much as we love Things, it's not the only tool, it's not the only app that we use. So I think the overarching theme, Mike, to talk about here first is the purpose of these apps. Because people could get hundreds of different super cool apps and put them on their phone. What's the actual purpose of having these apps?
I think let's just keep it really simple here. The purpose of all technology is just to help us, in this case, just be more efficient, be more productive, get more things done, do things better. And you're right. I think that's the pitfall in all this is that, you see the new shiny penny and you want to jump to the next new app that's come out, and before you know it, you've got 500 apps on your phone and on your desktop. And that, in fact, I would, in most cases, argue that that's actually moving you in the wrong direction and making you less productive. You kind of have apps because they exist and everyone's using them versus actually taking the time to think about, is this really helping me, is this moving me forward, is helping me be more productive? Or in many cases, I think the truth and the reality is that it's actually taking away from your productivity.
Yeah, I think this is where technology gets a bad rap, right? People look at it as something that is a time suck, that it's making us less focused, but technology used well and used properly is really a huge benefit. And, we've been proponents of that and advocates of that for a long time. The other component, you talked about having 500 apps, on the face of your phone or your desktop. I'm super, I'm definitely OCD and I'm super adamant about having this organized. I will give credit to one of our Life by Design docs, and that's Taya from the Life by Design office in Vancouver. She saw my desktop one time. I was speaking at New Zealand College. She was a student, and I was there for Lyceum. She saw the desktop on my computer, and apparently she's OCD like me, and she just about lost her mind. And so she showed me how to organize some things on my desktop. And so I'll give her credit there that, that prompted me to do the same thing on my phone. So if you don't know, you can categorize all the different apps. So you can actually, if you have an iPhone, which I know you and I both use Apple products. If you hold down an app, they all start to shake. You can actually group them together and label the categories. So for me, I have 6 or 7 different categories on my phone. So that allows all the apps that I have. So whether it's 40 or 50 apps, they're all actually on one single page in my phone. I don't have to scroll. That's going to make you more productive as well.
And the other thing, Jamie, I think just to add to this part of the conversation is that I think there's always new apps coming out, which is great. some of them make, some of them are improvements over prior apps, and you definitely, it's warranted to move forward and change. But I think a lot of times what happens is that because there's always a new one coming out, is they want to get the newest, trendiest, app for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's also a big pitfall. I mean, some of the ones I know for a fact, there's a couple apps that there are probably better ones out there, but the difference is, marginal. And so to transfer over and to learn how to use a new one, I think, you need to really just think that through before you just automatically, oh, there's a new one, better grab that one, and you change everything over and you got to restart. And again, that can be a massive time suck as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. So Mike, let's jump into this. We have 5 categories of apps and tools. And obviously, as we went through this list, there's far too many to talk about in a 30-minute show. So what we're going to do, guys, we're going to put them into a master list for you. So anything we don't talk about today will be on a master list that you can grab in the show notes, lifebydesign4chiropractors.com/podcast. Find today's episode, click on the link, and you'll be able to see the free download there and get the master list and all the links to where you can get these. So we're going to start off, Mike, talking about productivity. This is something obviously near and dear to our heart. And we talked about things last week. Is there anything else you'd like to add about things or Wunderlist?
No, I think just my best advice would be to go back and listen to that episode about how to do and how to master to-do lists.
Right.
That would be probably my best recommendation there. It's a tool that I depend on each and every day. It would probably be the number one. Like if I had to get rid of everything I have, that would probably be the one that I would keep.
I would agree 100%. And, it's funny. I was on my things today, as I am in my regular productivity system, and I'm still learning new things about it. You might laugh at this, but I didn't even realize there was a button below that you could change the start date. You already have the date set, and it's in my to-do list. And at the bottom, you can start later and actually move the date to a future date. So that's been very helpful because, my to-do lists tend to be probably a little overwhelming and maybe even a little aggressive. So it's nice to have that start later. So on the day when I'm planning out, I don't have to look at the 30 things that I thought I was going to do in that 3 hours. I can actually move them to a different time. The next app that is really valuable, and I know you use this more than me, so I'll let you talk about it, it's Habit List.
Yeah, I really, really like Habit List, and it's a very simple app, and essentially just allows you to create a list of all of your habits, or I guess really by definition, these probably aren't habits yet, because otherwise you really wouldn't need an app to keep track of them. You would just do them. But nonetheless, Habit List is essentially, it came from, the reason I started using it and started recommending it was that I realized that when it really comes down to it, when I set goals and objectives, the key to me accomplishing those is just following through on a bunch of linked habits. So for example, if I have a goal to, actually, one of mine this year is I still can't do a handstand for more than about 25 seconds, and I'm like determined this year. This is the year. I'm going to be able to hold that much longer. Anyhow, one of the habits that I added on here is that I need to take 5 minutes at the end of every training session, Monday to Thursday, and actually spend 5 minutes just working on that skill. And so I'm confident, and I'm certain actually, that if I do that Monday to Thursday, I am going to master that skill. I'm going to be able to hold that handstand for much, much, much longer. And so that's just one example, but I found that if I can, figure out what that kind of key habit is for each of my goals, and then if I follow through with the habits, the goals are guaranteed to be accomplished.
Yeah, I think that's a really pivotal point that gets missed. We talk about that in the chiropractic productivity system in more detail. But yes, I think it's a point that gets missed a lot. I'll actually give you credit for linking me to that. I've always been a goal setter, but I don't think I ever thought through to get to that fundamental piece that it's really your habits being tied to the goals that actually leads to the goals or the results of the goals. The other piece that just you brought up for me as you're talking about this, although we're advising you to use these apps and tools, there's a couple of them that, for me, for whatever reason, I still revert back to paper or a book. And, I think for the most part, I think the technology is the way to go. But example, the habit list and the next one, if I open up my cupboard door in the bathroom, I just realized I actually have a habit list on the door. So every day when I brush my teeth in the morning, at night, my habit list is actually on the door, and I completely forgot about that because I look at it every single day. So yeah, same thing, except mine's not in an app, Mike.
I mean, I think that's the key though, right? Is that you probably forgot about those because most of them have truly become habits where you
Right.
don't, you don't need that list. You don't need an app. They are truly habits now. Whereas the habit list app or your list in the beginning, their purpose was to help those items become true habits where you don't have to think about it. They're automatic.
Right. So that leads us to the 5-minute journal. So for me, I'll pass this to you in a second about how I use it. Another instance where I use paper, and I got this idea from one of our pals, Paul Grew, who's actually going to be on the podcast in one of the next few episodes. So Paul told me one day about what he was doing with his journaling, that he was actually journaling, but he was doing it in a book, like a nice hardcover bound book. And he was creating a volume of these that one day he was going to pass on to his children. I just, for whatever reason, that really resonated with me. And so I've started that process. So I do the 5-minute journal, and I journal in a book. And at some point, when Andy and the rest of the family are old enough, that's something that will get passed down to them. So my notes, my thoughts, my ideas, all written down in a series of similar journals. Now for you actually use the app.
Yeah, there's the 5-minute journal app, and I haven't checked lately, but I know for a while it had disappeared from the App Store in Canada for some reason. But I got it a long time ago, and I've been using it. Essentially, it's just what you said. I just prefer to type it into my phone. Essentially, just prompts me to write a few things about the day, things that were great. Actually, I do it in both the morning and evening. So it's just, hey, what are 3 things that you're going to accomplish today? What would make today great? And at the end of the day, what were 3 big wins from today? And what things are you going to make great about tomorrow? So essentially just, making sure that we're staying kind of out of that gap, as Dan Sullivan describes, really staying focused on what you're going to accomplish and what you have accomplished. Versus really getting stuck in like, oh man, like there's so many things that I need to do, and I just didn't get them done. It's just really taking the time to celebrate, and this app helps me do it.
Mike, another one that I know you really like, so I'll let you talk about this, is Rescue Time.
Yeah, Rescue Time. This is one, again, I think it's one that I used for a while, and I only check in on it now and again now, but it's kind of along that conversation of the habits. But I find for me in the past, and for most docs that I talk to, is that the biggest area where they lose and waste time is online, on their computer, even on their phone. And so they're getting lost on the internet. And so what Rescue Time is it's a really cool tracking system, and it'll track every movement you make online. And so if you're sitting down for 4 hours of focused work, and you have a list of things to get through, well, what happens is a lot of times docs get distracted by Facebook or searching Google or whatever, blogs or what have you. And so what Rescue Time does is it tracks every second that you're online. And so then what you can do is you can categorize all the different things. So you can categorize certain things that you do online as productive, and then other ones, like say Facebook, as unproductive. And then it actually gives you a score. So at the end of the day, you can look and say, oh, today I was 84% productive, and I spent 1 hour and 37 minutes on Facebook. And so it gives you a report card. It kind of holds you accountable. And when I was using it at first, it really it was almost like a game, like that productivity score was out of 100. I wanted to see how high I could get it and how much I could stay on track. And so I used it for a long, long time, probably a whole year. And I would watch it all the time and just see how good I could get. I've gone away from it now because, again, it's become a habit for me not to go and do those distracting things. So I don't feel like I need to spend that time. So there's a good example back to our conversation from the beginning where, the technology was wonderful for me, but it stopped being valuable and helping me be more productive. It had served its purpose. But if that's a place where you waste a lot of time, I highly recommend it.
So we've got a handful of other ones in productivity, Mike, but we'll jump ahead to tools. Before I do, I think you talked about Facebook and how we get sucked into that. I think it's interesting as we go through this list, you'll notice Facebook isn't one of the apps that we're recommending. In fact, we actually advise you to take Facebook off of your phone and other social media off of your phone, because it does become such a suck, and it's so easy to just click that button and to slide in, and all of a sudden you're an hour and a half, 2 hours later into, reading about other people's lives and things that don't actually lead you to being more productive. The tools that we're going to talk about now, I think this is where some of the really, really good stuff is. I mean, the productivity, obviously you need that as a base and a foundation. The tools are things that, for the most part, I use these almost every day, if not at minimum every single week. So the first one is Dropbox. I mean, I can't imagine actually functioning without Dropbox. So for me, you talk about things. Things is definitely number one. Dropbox probably number two. It's something we use every day. It's, where we house our office files. That's where our backups go. It's how we allow different people in our company to interact with one another. At Life by Design, we do the same thing. So Dropbox has so many really solid functions. It just works well. It's one of those apps, Mike, that it just simply works, and it's so robust, and it's worth every single penny that we've invested in having a Dropbox.
You know what else I think about a lot, as far as a benefit to using Dropbox and using really any cloud-based platform is that, I mean, essentially, I'm looking like right now, we're recording this on my MacBook Air, and I got like literally the base model of it because I don't have to have anything on this computer anymore because it can all live on Dropbox. So I don't have to worry about how much memory is on there, how many files can this thing hold. It doesn't matter anymore because everything just gets stored in Dropbox and saved there. So it's something you don't kind of think about often, but that just allows you to be so much more productive as far as like just your computer functioning at its best because of all the files that you have. And over the years, I'm sure you're like me, like I've filled up computers, time and time again. So I think that's a big advantage that people don't talk about it very often.
Oh, my Dropbox, I believe, I pay for a terabyte every year. And, I'm not exactly sure what the Dropbox account is at in terms of size. I'm looking at it right now. So I have a terabyte available, and I have 15% of that used, and that's $100. So, I mean, compared to having to add that to your computer, I have the same base model you do on my MacBook Air. I followed suit, and, it's been really, really good in every single way. The second one in tools, and if you don't know about this and you're doing any of your own design work, any of your own marketing, you need to make Facebook ads, promotion inside your practice, newsletters, Canva. I mean, what an amazing tool Canva is. I can't imagine how many graphic designers have lost how much business due to Canva. It's such a great tool, so easy to use. If you haven't used Canva, this is one you definitely need to look into.
I think the biggest advantage there, I mean, of course, you can make flyers and you can make anything on there, but the biggest advantage that it has is doing any online marketing. In terms of just creating images for your site or creating Facebook covers, or there's just so many uses for it. But especially if you're really active in online marketing, Canva can give you that really professional look that previously you would have had to reach out to a designer, and it's free. Even better. They have a paid version. I'm not even sure what the paid version, what other benefits it gives you, but it's a free service. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think about just doing a Facebook cover image and having to send that off to our designer to do, and wait for them to do it and send it back to you. I can go on Canva, have it done in 5 minutes. It really is, yeah, it's amazing. The next one, Mike, is Evernote. I know I use this to compile information. So I have a bunch of notebooks in my Evernote. I think that you probably use this more than I do. So why don't you share the benefits that you've had with using Evernote?
Evernote would be one of the ones that I use the most. I use it for everything. So like you, I do use it as a place to compile information. You can easily kind of clip web pages and articles online with a push of a button, and then it saves you and categorizes them all. But essentially, I use this for all my note taking. So back in the day, you would have a million different Word documents. I make everything that I do, I write it and create it first in Evernote. So if I'm going to write a blog post, I create it in Evernote. If I'm going to write a lead magnet, if I'm going to write some new copy, if I'm just going to brainstorm ideas, if I'm going to be doing coaching with someone, all of my notes for those coaching calls are in there. And so it's just a great way. They have a great way of organizing it all to keep it super simple and organized. But also what I really love about it is that you can work it can sync across all your different devices so that it's always available to me on my phone, my laptop, my desktop. I can find it anywhere. And the searchability inside it is really, really robust. So it's a great way versus trying to, search through all your files online. All of my files are there. I can just search one place, and it pops up really, really easily. So I love Evernote.
And it's another app, I believe, that's a free service, right? I mean, they have an upgraded paid version or multiple sources, but I think you can carry it across two devices for free.
Absolutely, yep.
So the next one you introduced me to, and we used it at the last LifeCon event when we did the Ultimate Chiropractic Marketing Blueprint, and it was extremely valuable. It was actually a lot of fun to play with, and that's Sketch.
Yeah, Sketch essentially is kind of an add-on to Evernote. It's also free. And the reason that we're using it at LifeCon is that when you're doing like a screen share, so that was like a training session, and so we wanted to share our screen oftentimes. And so Sketch, for whatever reason, provides the highest quality snapshots or screenshots. So that's why we used it. But what's really cool about it is you can add all sorts of really cool little things to it. So if you take a snapshot of your screen, you can add little arrows or circle or highlight or add words. You can do all sorts of really cool things with it, and it's really easy to use. So another little free app that's inside of Evernote.
In terms of our CRM, so what we use to manage our database, how we build all of our campaigns, all of the back end that you don't really see here at Life by Design. Also in our offices, we use Infusionsoft, and a variation of that we would actually recommend you use would be ConvertKit. So I get a lot of people asking me about Infusionsoft. Mike, what do you say to clients who they probably listen to the podcast, they find out in some way that we choose Infusionsoft? What do you advise people to do for their own practices?
Yeah, they don't call it Confusionsoft for nothing. It's confusing. It's big. It's massive. It has so many bells and whistles. It's an amazing, amazing piece of technology. It is fantastic. However, it's very. It's not cheap. I think it's $300 or $400 a month. The abilities it has far surpasses what most chiropractors need. The only reasons we use it is because we have multiple businesses. I think we have 6 different businesses that use that one software, that one account. And so for us, that makes it very, cost effective for us. It's also, for us, the fact is that we've been using this for 5 or 6 years now. So we've got so many campaigns and sequences and so many things set up and so much time invested in it that changing it would not be fun. So Infusionsoft
No.
is amazing. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it. But for the your regular, most chiropractors, ConvertKit is what we recommend. And the reason that we on that note, the reason that we recommend ConvertKit over say MailChimp or Aweber or Constant Contact or any of the other ones in that category, in that $30 to $50 range, in that quality or that in that level of CRM, is that, in my opinion, ConvertKit does the best job at true automation. And so, yes, all of them advertise Aweber that they can automate things, and they can, but it's a very simplistic automation. And if you want to start to layer any marketing, any funnels like we taught at LifeCon in the Ultimate Chiropractic Marketing Blueprint, you're going to need a higher level of automation. And so at this point, ConvertKit is the only one that has that higher level of automation at that price point. It does all the other things just as well as all the others. So that's why we recommend ConvertKit.
One of the funny questions I know you get a lot, Mike, is people start doing some of the online marketing and they realize that, especially with Facebook, I think this is one of the interfaces that we advise people to use, at least to start with. There's so many different photo sizes on Facebook. If you haven't recognized that, you can't just upload the same photo for an event cover as you do for a Facebook cover, as you do for a post, as you do for, and so how do you change the photo sizes? I know a lot of people are always, how do I resize a photo? There's actually an easy way to do it.
And you know what? I think people are oftentimes like, really? Like that's what you use? Because they don't even think about it. And of course, this is only going to be for Mac users, but I just use iPhoto. People are always like, do I need to buy Adobe Photoshop? And no, you don't. So iPhoto is what I use. And you're right, is that it comes back to this idea when you're online is you want everything that you put out, every Facebook post, everything just to look so professional, as if it was, done by a designer, as if it was an article in a magazine. And so you really want all your photos to be, just perfect, and just be the perfect size. And so iPhoto is what I use. It allows you to upload images, edit them, change the sizes of them, export them in all sorts of different sizes. For example, sometimes on different WordPress sites, there's a limit, usually around 2 megs of upload size. So sometimes you've got to make that image smaller. So for anything photo related, I just use iPhoto. I don't have any special software. iPhoto can really do everything you need.
The category that we're going to cover next, Mike, is education. So we've talked about productivity. We've talked about some of the tools that we use. In terms of education, what would be the 1 or 2, 3, 4 apps that you think can be really, really valuable? Obviously, you want something to listen to podcasts. You want something to probably listen to audiobooks, and maybe something to be able to capture all the crazy amounts of information on the web that you're trying to encapsulate, so you're not losing possible content day by day.
Yeah. So as far as the audio goes, I use my iTunes. Again, as a Mac user, I use iTunes, and that's where, of course, all my podcasts are. One little thing, and I think actually, Jamie, I might have heard it with you and with Lawrence on the old podcast, is that he had recommended, or one of you had recommended, listening to all the podcasts in double speed. So that's something I can definitely recommend as an aside. And iTunes is great, is that you can listen to all the podcasts in double speed. So that's great. I know a lot of people use Stitcher as well. I'm not too familiar with that, but iTunes is what I use to listen in the car to. I have about I think I have 11 podcasts right now that I keep up with, that I really enjoy. And every time I'm in the car, just pop one on. Audible as well, as if you want to get into a book. As an example, The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem is a book that I re-listen to at least once a year, and I've got it in an abridged audio version on Audible, and so I just click play at least once a year to kind of refresh my mind about that required reading, as far as I'm concerned. So those are the 2 that I use as far as audio goes. As far as reading goes, this may come as a surprise to some people, but I'm sure you guys are like me in the sense that you listen to a podcast, you read a book, you see something online, and they've got a recommendation for another book that you should read. And so in the past, I always had this list of, actually it was in Evernote, a list of all these books. But they're just kind of all scattered there. And so actually what I realized is that if you download the Amazon app, they actually have a little thing on there called Wishlist. And whenever you have a book uploaded on Amazon that you're looking at, there's actually a button that says upload to wish list, and then you can choose a wish list, so you can create all sorts of different ones in different categories, and then just click it. And then next time you're looking for a book on, say, parenting, you can go to your parenting category, and you've got all of your lists that you've saved over time. And then it's just one click, Amazon Prime, it's at your door in 2 days. So I find that really, really efficient. And also, too, what I get asked a ton, Jamie, I'm sure you do too, is docs are saying, okay, actually it happened yesterday. What are your top, what are your best, your favorite parenting books? So I just clicked share in my Amazon wish list and sent that out to him so that he could look through my list. So I find that really, really helpful. And then I think the last one really comes back to your comment earlier about Facebook and keeping Facebook off your phone. The one thing that I do, and the only reason I really do this, is because of just trying to create regular social media posts that are relevant. Flipboard is another one that I've been using recently to help me find content. And Flipboard essentially is just an aggregator of content online, but the thing I like about it is that you can choose all sorts of different topics, and there's hundreds of them on there, and it just kind of actually just continuously gives you different options to continue to refine the types of articles you want to read. And then when you open Flipboard, that's all you see, is you only see articles about those topics, those very specific topics. I was very surprised at the specificity that you want to see, so you don't get distracted by all the other stuff. So I was using Flipboard a lot, and of course you can use it just for interest's sake and finding articles that you like, so you don't get distracted by the other stuff. But what it also does for me is it allows me to come up with a lot of great content to post on social media.
So, Michael, let's talk about the last 2 categories. The 4th category is finances. And I know that you use an app that's called Mint.
Yes, Mint is one that I've been using for a long time, and I really like it. It's pretty simple. The question always comes up, do I use it for my practice? No, I do not. I only use it for my personal expenses. But it essentially sinks into your bank, and then essentially you can actually set up so that it automatically categorizes and just kind of allows you to create a budget. It allows you to see what your true expenses were and the difference. And it really allows you to keep a really close eye on all of your finances. You can integrate your mortgage and credit cards and everything in there. So it's kind of looking at like a snapshot of all your different financial stuff in one place. Allows you to budget, make sure that you're on track. So Mint is a great tool, and it's another free one as well. So there's no cost for that one.
So let's jump ahead to the last category, Mike, and that's health. There's probably thousands of apps that you can use for health. And, I see people, they have their Fitbit, apps and all the different. So we want to give you some that you maybe didn't think about. One of them is Sleep Cycle. And you introduced me to this a few years ago. And similar to some of the other ones when you build a habit. So I don't really use Sleep Cycle anymore, but I did use it for a period of time. It's really interesting to take a look at your sleep cycle and to see, what the quality of your sleep was. So, the way it functions is you take your phone and you put it next to where you're sleeping, and it essentially measures the amount of movement that you have, and it starts to identify where you are in the different sleep cycles, and it tells you had a good sleep, a bad sleep. It also, the alarm, what I liked about it most actually was the alarm, and the alarm goes off. I think it's a 30-minute window, Mike, or a 15-minute window. I'm not exactly sure if you can change that or not, but it tries to wake you up at the best possible time. So if you say I need to wake up by 6 o'clock, it will wake you up. It might be at 5:42 if it finds that that's, where you are at the best place in the sleep cycle to wake up. So I don't know if you've ever, woken up because you had to and you just felt really, really off and everything felt like it was, you're completely discombobulated. That's because, you're at a certain point in the sleep cycle versus just waking up naturally in the sleep cycles. This tries to find, what that place is in the sleep cycle when it wakes you up. So it does a bunch of other things, but for me, that was one of the, I found it to be one of the really cool things that it did.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And the other thing I would add is that what I really enjoy about it and what I use it for is the trends. So it'll actually grade your sleep over a period of time, and you can see what I found is, I believe it was Mondays, I didn't sleep as well, like consistently over a couple months. My sleep on Mondays was poor, and so it was much lower than all the other days. And so that allowed me some insight to kind of start to think, okay, what do I do different on Mondays? So why is my sleep so much, not nearly as good on Mondays? And so that allowed me to kind of figure out what that was. So I'm with you. Is I use it for a while. It's something that you need to have your phone on. You need to have your phone on, like beside you. Right. And I don't really necessarily love that all the time, but I think it's definitely worthwhile to have it for a period of time so that you can learn about your sleep cycle and make some improvements there.
So the last couple here, Mike, Technique. This is a new one you introduced me to. We're using it in the Fit Club. Really nice app to actually look at your technique. So if you're training, you can set it up, you can shoot a video, you can look at everything from angles to slow motion, all the different components, and you can actually see as you said in the pre-show, just how poor your technique actually is.
Yeah, I have this one on all the time as I'm at the gym, especially I'm doing Olympic lifting or even some mobility things where I'm not sure I've got the right position. I just record it. You can go in slow motion, and then I can make some changes right there, like in the workout, so that my next set is going to be better. So I think it's a great learning tool, especially in a gym. Like obviously for us, where we're training other people, it's a great tool. But I think it's just great for yourself to constantly be trying to improve and ensure that you've got great form and great technique when you're lifting.
And the final app is Flux. So Flux is an app that you can connect to, I believe it's your browser, but I'm not 100% sure exactly how it works. Nonetheless, what it does is it reduces the amount of emissions from your screen. So it will dim the screen so it's not so bright. When you look at your screen and it's 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night, and maybe you're still on your computer, that's affecting your sleep. It's affecting the changes in hormones. It's affecting the way that you would slide into your sleep cycle. So Flux will turn on at a certain period of time, and it will try to dampen the amount of emission that your screen is kicking out. So mine's on all the time on my computer, Mike. I don't know if you have the same thing.
Yeah, mine's on all the time.
Yeah, so it basically knows your time zone, and then it will accommodate to that. So obviously there was a lot more apps that we can cover on today's episode. If you want this master list, just go to the page, the show notes, lifebydesignforchiropractors.com/podcast. You can download it there. Thank you for listening to the show, Life by Design for Chiropractors, the voice of reason in chiropractic.